1. One day back when I was in high school, I was reading in my room when I heard people outside. At first I thought I was hearing my family at the other end of the house and didn't think anything of it. But as I listened closer, the noise was coming from outside my open window and it seemed to be getting louder. Now before I go on, I'll give you a little more background about my location. My house is in a rural part of town and sort of secluded, in that you can't see it from the main road. In order for anyone to get to my house, they basically have to be invited. You'd never know it existed due to all the trees. There's no sidewalks out this way either. People don't walk anywhere here. You need a car to get places since everything is so spread out. There's just trees, cornfields, and cows. Keeping this in mind, I wondered who was outside since I thought my family was inside. At first I thought maybe it was my dad talking to the neighbor. However, once I stopped reading and really paid attention, it sounded like little kids talking and laughing. At this point, I'd been hearing the noise for maybe 5 minutes or so. When I finally got up to look out the window, there were 3 kids walking up our driveway. I thought this was really strange since, like I said, no one ever comes back here. They were still at the end of our really long driveway. It's something like 300 feet or 100 meters. Slowly walking up alongside our hedges that are next to it. I watched them from my window for a couple minutes, trying to figure out who they were. It was August, which is summertime here, so they were all wearing shorts and striped t-shirts, but they didn't look real. Overall, their features looked soft or slightly fuzzy. But when I looked back at the driveway and bushes around them, the whole area looked hazy, kinda like there was a camera filter applied. Everything looked slightly yellow and old-timey, like I was going back in time or something. Their clothes looked dated, like maybe from between the 1950s to 1980s. I also couldn't really tell if they were male or female, but I got the impression it was 2 boys and a girl. They looked about my age, but I definitely didn't know them from school. Everything else was still the same though. The bushes didn't change shape or anything. They just had this filtered look to them. All the trees were still there. None appeared or disappeared, indicating the landscape changed. My driveway also stayed the same, but had this filtered look to it as the kids kept walking up towards the house. At this point, I'm sort of freaking out because this is weird. But I was more intrigued than anything. I wanted to know who they were. Like I said, I basically live in the middle of nowhere, so everyone pretty much knows everyone else here. They kept getting louder and louder as they got closer to the house. When they started walking across our turnaround, I heard their footsteps on the gravel and noticed they looked sort of see-through. I really freaked out now, so I left my room and went to the living room to see if I could see them any better. I couldn't because it was further away, but my dad was mad he could hear them laughing over his TV show. So I wasn't the only one who heard them, which made me feel better. My parents asked me who was outside since they heard the talking and laughing, and I just said, some kids from school probably, even though I knew they weren't at this point. From the living room window, I watched as they walked across the turnaround and back behind our garage. At this point, my 14 or 15-year-old self thought it'd be a great idea to go outside and spy on them, so I stealthily headed out to our patio to see where they went. Now, behind our house was a line of pine trees dividing my yard from a big field. It was maintained, not overgrown or anything, so it looked like a regular yard, just field-sized. The pine trees were only about 6 to 8 feet tall since they were planted a few years beforehand. They were also planted in a staggered zigzag pattern, not right next to each other, so you could see between them. Basically, they were tall and skinny and hadn't filled out yet. As I moved to the end of our patio, I watched the kids, who never saw me at any point during this whole thing, walk from behind our garage, still laughing and talking away, walk up to and between the pine trees. Once they cleared the trees, I started to follow them. I saw 2 of them walk into the middle of the field, and it looked like they started to fade as they walked. I thought I was imagining things at this point, but boy was I wrong. The third was obstructed by a tree the whole time I was walking there. When I got to the pine trees, all 3 kids were gone, vanished. I had no idea where they went, and still can't make sense of it to this day. There's no way they could have made it to the other side of the field in the time it took me to get to the pine trees, because I would have still seen them in the field, even if they ran. I still would have seen them. That's how big the field is. If they would have went toward the road, I would have seen them. They didn't lay down on the ground or anything because that would have been super noticeable. It was just like a regular yard, just huge. Everything is clear and open. There's nowhere to hide. They also didn't turn around and hide in the pine trees because that's where I was. I would have heard them. The trees made a distinct noise when you walked through them. I don't know what to make of it. Were they real? Were they ghosts? Did I get a glimpse of a past time or a parallel dimension or something? I wouldn't blame anyone for thinking I hallucinated the whole thing, but my parents heard these kids talking and laughing too. As far as I know, no one else saw them, since my parents didn't look outside. A week or so later, though, my dad casually mentioned the neighbor complained to him about hearing them walk past his house too. 2. First off, to give some context, I'm a 21-year-old female from England, who is currently living in the Netherlands as part of my Erasmus year abroad, before moving to Germany for the second half of the year. Everything is great here, aside from how much more effort that studying in the Netherlands requires than back home in England. I've managed to, somehow, get myself a lovely Dutch boyfriend, who has made my time here the absolute best. We met on Tinder, no judgment please, around 3 or 4 months ago, which could have in itself turned into a let's not meet story if he didn't turn out to be who he said he was, but I digress. This glitch situation revolves around him. A little description of my boyfriend. He doesn't look like the typical Dutchman. He has a big bushy beard, shoulder-length hair, and big brown eyes. He does, however, fall into the stereotype of Dutch men being tall. Every week we go round to his friend's house or eetclub, where we all drink wine, listen to music, and cook a meal together, and it's always super nice. My bike has been broken for about a month after a drunken cycle home, and being a typical procrastinating student, I have yet to even consider getting it fixed. Because of this, I was going to walk round to my boyfriend's apartment, around a 15-minute walk from my new place, and he would cycle from there to his friend's house, with me on the back. I don't know what the actual term for this is, but it's called a croggy where I'm from in England. So I texted him saying I was about to set off walking to his place. He replied with his standard coolio, and off I went. I was around 2 minutes away from his place when I see a bearded, shoulder-length haired man cycling towards me. Same brown coat and jeans as my boyfriend, same black beanie that makes him look like a gnome, because it pushes his hair down to the side of his face. Same method of cycling, and usual cigarette in hand. I stopped in my tracks and watched him cycle by, about to call out his name and ask what he was doing and where he was going since I was on my way to his place. He seemed so familiar, and I was certain it was him, from his mannerisms through to his outfit. I decided to just go to his place anyway, and not text him to ask where he was going, since his phone is usually dead anyway. I just thought that one of his housemates would answer the bell and let me in. Anyway, I got to his place and my boyfriend answered the door to let me in. I started rambling a little overexcitedly about how I swear I had just seen him 2 minutes ago, and that I was really confused and that maybe it was a glitch or a doppelganger, and in a parallel universe he was actually around at my place instead. He doesn't subscribe to any of these theories, so he just shrugged them off. I did, however, warn him to be careful about bumping into his doppelganger, seeing as I'm a caring and considerate girlfriend, which earned a little giggle from him. I thought I would share this to a community that is more than likely to be open to such things. My boyfriend is a sweetie, but has no time for my wacky theories. I think that it's of course possible that this was simply not him, not a glitch, and not a doppelganger. But in my 4 months here in this city, I have not seen anyone who looks even remotely similar to him. And there was something about the way it made me feel in the pit of my stomach when I saw this person that makes rationalizing this difficult. I'm open to suggestions. 3. When I was 13 years old, I was attending a school which had separate classrooms for boys and girls, except for some classes, computers, training, coaching classes for certain competitions, in GK, mathematics, science, etc. Apart from classrooms, pretty much everything was shared. And it was usual to have friends in opposite gender. Since I opted for computer class, I was attending it with boys and girls both, and that was the first time I befriended a couple of girls too. One of them was a bit off. She never talked much, almost never spoke in class at all, and pretty much never opened up to anyone as far as I know. She also had some psychic abilities. For example, she could read whatever I am thinking, no matter whatever absurd thing I am hooked to. irrespective of whether it is anyhow related to what we were talking about, or doing something. When I say she could read, she could do it word by word. Same lines of thought that I had in my head moments ago. Obviously, it was impossible to lie to her or hide something from her. She also had reversibility, shoving her thoughts into my head. Those always appeared as, she is thinking about XYZ or she wants me to do XYZ, instead of feeling like they are my own thoughts. Being a kid who was fascinated by every damn thing under the sun, I was immediately hooked to this mode of communication. Obviously, we had many such communications by just thinking in our heads. At that time, I thought we can do it with anyone, just that people are idiots not to use this extensively already. Time passed by, and one day we got the news that she had committed suicide. There was some buzz about it, but that died rather quickly. The investigation, post-mortem, revealed that she had swallowed barbitol and alcohol to commit suicide. I did not think too much about this barbitol and alcohol combination until much later, when I had more understanding of chemistry, toxins, and some biology. I was a science and math student. The suicide seemed fishy to me. She was my age. Who told her about barbitol? Why did she take alcohol after barbitol? Swallowing alcohol points to the possibility that she knew it will accelerate the poisoning significantly. Where did she get barbitol? It is a restricted drug, and has been restricted for ages. No one used to consume alcohol in her family in any shape or form. Then where did she get alcohol? Some more years later, I returned to the city I attended my school. I managed to find my teachers and many classmates. When I talked about that girl to any of those chaps, no one remembered a thing. Absolutely nothing. I assume that this may now be because she never interacted much with anyone. So there is no reason anyone will remember her. After some resistance and insistence from my side, teachers decided to dig into admission and attendance records of that time, as they too did not remember any such girl, and were sure that there was no suicide case. As per records, there was no such girl, no admission, no attendance, nothing. My original plan was to find her then home address, and see if I can find something in that area. But I had no more leads to follow, so I dropped it. But this is still bugging me, not the suicide, but the way the suicide was committed, and absence of records. Is my memory false, or did I dream something which persisted as a real memory? Has anyone else had such memory glitches? Any help will be appreciated. 4. Okay, so I have anxiety disorder pretty bad. So I'm freaking out pretty bad at the moment. I'm trying to stay calm, but what has happened has completely baffled me, and there's literally no possible explanation. Let me give a bit of context, cause if I just say what happened off the bat, y'all would assume I was joking. I live with my mom and my sister, but my sister is away in Japan, and we are all girls. I also have a cat who is a girl. I sleep in the living room on a futon because of my anxiety. I feel more trapped and alone in a bedroom. I woke up and my mom had coffee from Starbucks for me. I was grateful as coffee makes me feel better instantly. I used my laptop to listen to scary stories. In fact, I was listening to stories about glitches in the Matrix, so that I wouldn't fall back asleep but didn't have to open my eyes yet. I usually do this to gradually wake myself up. I put my coffee on my laptop on a flatbed near the trackpad. I had a pillow on top of me and rolled over forgetting the coffee was there. Luckily it tipped off outwards off the stool my laptop was on, but the lid popped off when it hit the floor. I was bummed, but I got up to clean it. I cleared the area of everything and eventually got as much as I could out of the carpet. That's not really too important, but my point is, since I cleaned the area around my bed, I would have noticed anything that was in the way. My mom has been home all day. She's been feeling pretty crappy. I too have felt really sick. In fact, I was staying in bed all day because I have sciatica. I have not left bed except to take painkillers. My mom woke up at 11 p.m., bummed that she had only slept 4 hours. I was still awake as I have trouble sleeping at night and usually stay up for prolonged periods of time. A few moments after waking up, she said, "Is that your lemonade on the floor?" I looked over and right next to my bed where my coffee had spilled, there was one of our glasses filled about halfway with foggy yellow liquid that looked like lemonade. I said no, and she brushed it off and asked me to take it into the kitchen. I picked it up with my hand over the top, and I felt heat on my palm as if the liquid was radiating heat. When I got in the kitchen, I looked in the fridge, and we don't have lemonade or any yellow drink. I looked at the surface of the yellow liquid and it had a lot of dust and hair, like it had been sitting there for a few days. I smelled it, and it didn't smell like anything at all. I went as far as to tip the glass towards me, so I could smell it better. Still didn't have any scent at all. For those that think it's pee, it's not pee, don't be weird. A little while passed and some other weird thing happened. Something with a reasonable explanation, so not gonna mention it here. So I went back in the kitchen and my mom said she threw out the lemonade. She was mostly ignoring me when I asked her about it, and said she didn't taste it because she didn't know what it was. I'm really weirded out. Where the fuck would a random half-full glass of lemonade come from? We don't even have any lemonade. We have never had any lemonade. Sometimes I buy bottled lemonade, but I never pour it into a glass, neither does my mom. Was it even lemonade? If not, what the fuck was in the glass? And why didn't it smell? Could someone help find an explanation for this? Any ideas? I feel like I must be losing my mind. Update. I have a small theory that is still odd, but makes the most sense. It's possible that the glass was there this morning when I spilled my coffee, and I somehow didn't see it. Maybe a tiny bit of coffee spilled into the glass and stained the water yellow, due to how diluted it was. I have no idea how I would have not seen it, though, if that were the case. Next time I have coffee, I will experiment by putting a spoonful or so in the same glass half full of water. Another theory. If I'm asleep in the morning when it's time to take my medicine, my mom wakes me up and gives me my medicine and a glass of water. Sometimes I don't properly wake up, so I take them subconsciously, then go back to sleep and don't remember it. It could be that the glass was my unfinished water from taking my medication, and it could be yellow because one of my pills is yellow and would probably stain the water if I had dropped it in accidentally. Still doesn't explain how I didn't see it while cleaning up the coffee spill, but I know that I am very unobservant, and it's the most solid explanation I can come up with after considering the options. As for the heat, it's possible I imagined that because I do occasionally have subtle sensory hallucinations, even when I've been awake for a long time. 5. I water my plants in front of my window every day with the hose. It's been a year since I moved into this house. I even crouch down to apply plant food sometimes, and scoop up some dry cat poop the local stray cats leave in my garden. It's a small space with only 2 plants, and all I've ever seen was mulch. I planted the flowers myself, digging the holes, applying fertilizer, mulch, and the whole ordeal. I know this little area of my front yard pretty well because I look at it every day, and like I said, I get pretty up close to it to clean shit, feed the plants, and rearrange wood chips in the mulch that the cats kick up when they shit. The rest in front is just grass. Now, we have sprinklers installed, but they are spread out on just the front lawn. They came with the house, they look very old and are not functional at all. This morning I go out to water the plants like I do every day, and notice right away a big old sprinkler sticking out of the ground right in between my 2 plants in front of the window. It looks like it's been there forever too, just like the others. I have never seen that there before, and I know for sure because I have a potted plant right next to the door that I always pick up and place right in between the 2 plants, so it can receive the water I'm already spraying the others with. Then I put it back later when it's no longer dripping mud from the holes at the bottom of the pot. I do that to not get my doorway all muddy and wet. Well, now the old non-functional sprinkler is in the way, and I can't do that anymore. I do this shit every day, and never have I seen that thing sticking out of the ground like that. We haven't had any sprinklers installed, and not even that would make sense because this thing looks old. Why would we get an old, raggedy sprinkler that doesn't work either installed? No signs of any dirt or mulch being moved around to make a hole. It doesn't look fresh. It's been there forever, just like the others. I pulled on it and wiggled it around, and it's tightly placed, but feels like an old piece of crap that could be kicked into bits. I feel like I'm going insane. I want to know what it means. If I should interpret this in some way, or if I should do anything. I've been getting a bunch of these since 2012, but shrugged them off as bad memory. Now I'm paying more attention, but they all seem so random. I'm sorry if this sounds like a Mandela effect, but even if it is, that phenomenon in itself is a glitch, and I thought this one was worth sharing. Fuck that sprinkler. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Glitch in the Matrix Stories, Episode 90. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use and sent in stories for use in this video. Ooh, it's getting very chilly here now, very icy. I went out last night, earlier, depending how you look at it. Earlier today, let's say. It's about 2 in the morning, to one of the local all-night shops in the petrol station. And I nearly fell flat on my bum several times. Thankfully, I didn't. I was very careful walking, but it's one of those things you go out and then you're halfway there and you think, I probably shouldn't have bothered leaving the house. I needed rolls. I wanted to have burgers, so I needed buns to put them on. Well, okay, with that I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.